Hi, my name's Adam Nicholas Phillips. I'm the CEO of Interfaith America, the nation's largest interfaith organization. I'm really delighted to be with you all. Shout out to Reverend Jim Burklow. Grateful for his leadership. We've done some things in the past number of years around faith and democracy, and I couldn't be more privileged to talk with chaplains right now, and maybe sometime we can do this interactively or maybe even in person. Interfaith America is about building bridges. It's about belonging. It's about tackling the loneliness epidemic. It's about delivering on the promise of the richness of America's religious diversity, and we see that through the lens of civic pluralism. You know, the founding fathers, and we would often, I think, need to say mothers of this country, got a lot of things wrong, but they did get a couple things really, really right. And that's centering these five freedoms that are enshrined in the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment, chiefly among them religious liberty and religious freedom. And the notion that the task at hand in that founding generation was around freedom of conscience, freedom of belief, and how that freedom then could instill and inspire folks to cooperate across difference. So how do we respect one another's differences? How do we relate across those differences? And then how do we cooperate across all of those differences for the common good? That's our work at Interfaith America. We've done that through DEI spaces, but we've done that through religious literacy spaces. But we really see our work as part of an effort to return to an original idea that the founders got right, which is pluralism. What is pluralism? E pluribus unum, the motto of the United States on the Great Seal, that's up for grabs right now. E pluribus unum, not simply meaning out of many one, the old Latin wording, but out of many a new whole. So what does a new whole as a country look like? It's a very critical question as America walks into 250th years of practice next year. 250 years of getting it right and getting it wrong, but trying to do that as citizens together, despite our differences, maybe even because of our differences. And so when we talk about pluralism, we're not talking about relativism or saying all beliefs are equal. But it's really a civic framework for how people of different identities and worldviews can build community together while maintaining their distinct commitments. So to respect someone else's identity does not require you to agree with it or accept it, but to respect and understand it, and then perhaps to see ways in which you can bridge your differences better now that you kind of understand them. It's also about accommodation and dignity, not doctrinal compromise. So we want. I know a lot of our mainline friends, and I count myself part of the community. We've done a pretty good job of trying to bridge divides between Lutherans and Presbyterians and Methodists and on and on and on. And yet we know it's also kind of complicated, right? So how do you take those practices and principles, not to water down your congregationalistness or your Anglicanness, but to really dig deep, root down into that, to then bridge to others that might come from the Sikh tradition or American Catholicism. When we also talk about relate, in this kind of triad of respect, relate, cooperate, what do we mean by relate? We really want to underscore and emphasize mutually inspiring relationships across difference. This isn't surface level networking or forced friendship. It's genuine engagement that recognizes both commonalities and divergences, built through shared activities like volunteerism or even just study or rec volleyball. How do you cooperate across these differences? How do you relate to one another as you then get into meaningful action together on your campus or in your community? And that's where cooperation comes into play. It focuses in on joint action around shared social concerns. So despite our irreconcilable differences on some issues, people can meaningfully engage around shared values for the common good. I know in my own local church ministry, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere around the Black Lives Matter movement or on COVID vaccine confidence without working with folks that we regularly disagreed with. So it's not just this kind of binary far right, far left concerns, but within these coalitions, within these communities, how do you respect, relate, and genuinely cooperate for the greater good? I often think about the war against DEI, and I was a proud member of the DEI committee at USAID, the leadership structure there, and we did incredibly important work. Religion is often left out of DEI, but it's also very centered in DEI work. But we also know that there are forces at play that are threatening that work, defunding that work. And this is, I don't think, about the politics around DEI. I think it's around a fundamental concern around diversity and whether we see diversity as a promise or as a threat. Pluralism isn't DEI light. That's one thing I want to underscore. It's evidence-based social change. Research shows that students who engage in 2+ interfaith activities increase appreciation for different groups with measurable reduction in bias. That's important. I think we shouldn't just be in this work because it's the right thing to do or it aligns with our hopes and dreams and visions and prayers for the kingdom of God, for, as some of us might put it. It's not just the right thing to do, a good idea, but it's evidence-backed and it can actually help communities flourish. There's a science, there's data to this. Research shows that past interactions is a strong indicator that how many people from different groups one knows personally underscores their ability to build relationships across difference. So perhaps what we could be doing also is focusing our limited time and resources on creating meaningful, challenging conversations rather than surface level diversity programming. With the crisis on college campuses and in the public square and in corporate America even on diversity and DEI, I think it's an opportunity for us to not lean back, but to lean in and try to go deeper while folks are looking to divide us even further. So, there's a lot to say about seeing this work as a battlefield, but maybe we can see these places as shared spaces where folks can even think about not just fostering communities, but doing simple things like hosting a potluck. Potluck can go wrong when only one group of people is bringing one type of dish. A potluck can go wrong when people are excluded from it. It's actually kind of an interesting metaphor to think about when you think about a potluck nation of individuals bringing their treasures, their fruits or their favorite comfort meals to the conversation. Everyone needs to eat, and everyone's looking for belonging in community. So what would it look like to host a potluck maybe even on your campus between evangelical groups and Muslim groups and Jewish groups and mainline groups and social justice groups and even young Republicans, young Democrats? It could be interesting. I think people are looking for ways to relate. And I think this is a tremendous moment for chaplains, for faith leaders, for campus leaders, community leaders to position oneself as an alternative to campus polarization. So as universities defend traditional DEI, and so many of you are, I know, upholding these spaces, and these spaces need to be protected and stewarded, and that's incredible work that you're doing. Pluralism is a potential way to offer a research-backed approach that builds bridges rather than reinforces silos or continued polarization. So you're not just filling a gap, you're really pioneering more effective model for diverse democracy, and it might even be patriotic. I'm totally indebted to chaplaincies like yourselves. I went to Ohio State in the late 90s, early 2000s with the run-up to the war in Iraq, and a very polarized nation after a very polarized election. I found my evangelical campus ministry to be wanting on a whole host of things. And when my college roommate invited me to the Lutheran chapel on campus to have a conversation about community and discipleship and Dietrich Bonhoeffer, it literally saved my faith. So grateful for all you do and want to be in solidarity with what you're about. And let us know how we can help along the way. Peace and every good.